Okay, welcome back, everybody. So today we're still in the middle of Vayikra, and I tried to show you that we tried to explain last week the title from Sinai to sanctuary to society, and we showed in the first half of the book how visiting the sanctuary, visiting the Mishkan, is supposed to remind you of the commitment we made at Mount Sinai. Therefore, all the parallels. But the goal of visiting the temple is to take the message and the commitment you made at Har Sinai into your day-to-day life, and hence the second half of Vayikra. And that explained the centrality of Parshat Kedoshim to you, where there has to be a connection between your visit to the temple or to the tabernacle on a regular basis and how you behave once you leave to be Kadosh, meaning not what you are, but you need to be. Remember, at Har Sinai, we made a commitment, Batem tu l'mamechet koni v'loy kadosh, and therefore act that way. And then we have a guide of what that means in your day-to-day behavior. But we stopped at last week, which I'm going to have to wait till next week. In the middle of all these laws about normal day-to-day life and good basic social behavior, we have some chukim in the middle, smack in the middle of this. It begins with, classic behavior. We saw all the parallels to Ten Commandments. You have certain chukim there, like shatnez. We have to go back to that later on. But at the beginning, at the end, we ended last week's shir with the grand finale of chapter 19, which talks about how we have to treat a stranger. And I'm going to return to that stranger. And I want to discuss today the big question, which is a question not only about Vayikra, but also in all of Chumash. When Chumash talks about a stranger, is he a convert or is he a ger or is he a ger? Meaning, when we say ger in our jargon today, he's a ger means he's a convert. When Chumash says ger, is that a convert or someone who's not who's just a foreign worker or something like that? So I'm going to share my source sheet and I think it'll be interesting, and I'll need your intake a little bit. Should be helpful today, this week. Okay, so I think I just read my introduction. Okay, yeah, I think I just said. So that was good. And today's show will discuss the controversy of what the word ger means and how the Torah we're used to the word Torah in both its narrative sections and law sections, who the ger is. We can see there's no doubt it's a mega theme in the Torah, the idea of ger. And therefore, understanding what it means will be critical. Now, just to review what we saw last week, in chapter Tanin in Vayikra, the famous Kedoshim to you, because I'm Hashem, your boss, we saw that was like the first commandment of the first statement of the Ten Commandments. We went on and saw them. And then in verse 9, when you're harvesting your field, make sure to leave over your corner, make sure remember leket and pay, all those different things. The same thing with not only with your wheat and your grain, also with your vineyard. And your all the rest of your produce, leave it for the ani v'lager tazav ani Hashem Elokechem. Then we have more good behavior, like not being a gossiper, etc. Then the famous lo tamadu dam reach we explained was an expansion of lo tirsach. Now we don't kill someone, but be responsible for other people's lives. Don't be an innocent bystander. Don't hate your neighbor or your brother in your heart. Give him warning, etc. And the famous line, not to take revenge, and v'afta kamocha, and that ended that section of Ani Hashem. Then we went to Chukim. Now, again, the last phrase of the laws that reflect the Ten Commandments was v'afta kamocha, with the Ani Hashem, because I'm God. And then we had more Chukim, which we'll go back to. Then at the end, in the grand finale, v'chiyagur itchager b'artzachem, should a stranger be in your land, treat him like an ezrach, okay, and love him. Remember, not only after l'recha kamocha, that's easy. Even a ger, love him like yourself, because you of all people should know, because you were strangers in Egypt. That phrase comes up numerous times in Chumash. Again, ani Hashem Elokechem. Then the classic, have a just commerce, etc. Your marketplace should full of justice, etc. Good weights, etc. Because I'm Hashem, your God, who took you out of Egypt to become that nation. Therefore, keep all my chukim and my mishpatim and do them with the Ani Hashem, the grand conclusion, and that the grand finale of Vayikra. So now, I want to talk about the word ger. This thing, just for a start, let's see how they translate the ger in verse 9. Okay, anyone with an English, open up chapter 19, verse 10 in Vayikra 19:10. And we'll start sharing. I'll stop the share for a second, and we'll go one at a time. Who's my first volunteer? Name your translation and name how he translates the word.
Okay.
Could you explain to us what Ezrach
Oh, perfect.
Sweet
That's our next
is
topic. Okay. Ezra, we're ready. That's it. Just wait 3 minutes and we'll be there. First, I want to
thank you.
see what the word ger is. You'll see from the I think. Okay, Ruth, you start.
Yeah. Am I muted? Again, okay. All right. So Everett Fox's Shocking Bible.
Uh-huh.
So he calls the ger the sojourner.
Sojourn, okay.
Yeah, and the contemporary the JPS, JPS is the stranger.
Okay.
And wait, and there's somebody else. Oh yeah, and the Matsuda publication, they call it the proselyte.
Proselyte. Okay. Now, anyone have Art
Proselyte.
Scroll?
Okay.
I do, but
Nobody's-
what verse? What verse do
uh,
you want?
Chapter 19, verse 10 in Vayikra.
Yes, I
And
have Art Scroll. It also says proselyte.
Proselyte. Okay. Sometimes a
proselyte.
stranger is not necessarily Jewish. A proselyte is a convert.
And
Correct?
I have Rav Soloveitchik's, and he uses it as stranger.
Okay. And who has Robert Alter? That's really I
I
want to
have
see that.
Alter. Alter says also sojourner, but he defines it as a resident alien.
Okay, that means it's resident alien means not Jewish. And Nomi, you have a different one?
I have the Steinsaltz and they call it the migrant.
Oh, migrant. Okay, the new Magraman I think says migrant also, if I'm not mistaken. They have the new Magraman Koran.
Oh, the
Yeah.
new
The old
Koran.
Koran I think
Wait a
says
minute.
stranger. The
Yeah,
new Magraman Koran I think says migrant. Now, when you say migrant, would that mean a convert or not?
No.
no.
Probably not.
Right?
Okay, but
Yeah,
a
yeah.
proselyte for sure is a convert. A
Rabbi
sojourner.
Kaplan.
And there was
Kaplan
more.
has stranger.
Is there any other translation there out there?
Rabbi
Sojourner,
Kaplan, the
okay.
Living Torah,
Yeah. What's he saying?
he says stranger.
Strange. Okay, now go now to verse 33 at the end of the chapter, 1933, about loving the stranger. And I want to see how he says, remember, Kigerim Haitem Beretz Mitzrayim. So could it say, love the proselyte because you were proselytes in Egypt? That wouldn't make sense. But let's see. I want to see how they,
I
again, I'll
have
show you
Sforno. I have Sforno.
Say it again, which pace, para?
verse 33, I think, right? Kigor Chager.
Oh,
Yeah.
but same para? What is
So I
it?
have Sforno, which says proselyte, but then when they're talking about us, they say, for you were aliens in the land of
Oh,
Egypt.
be nice to the proselyte because you were aliens in the land of Egypt. Even though it's the same word. Okay. I wonder how Robert Alter deals with this. And Doreen?
Yeah.
Yeah, read 33 and 34 for me.
Okay. Alter says, and should a sojourner sojourn with you, you shall not wrong him like the native among you. You shall be the sojourner who sojourns with you. You shall love him like yourself, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt.
Okay, so he's consistent. Okay.
And he defines sojourner as someone who doesn't own land.
Oh, very good. Now that's interesting because I'm going to use that for Ezrach. Right?
Okay.
When Ezrach and Ger come together. Oh,
Okay.
perfect. Okay. Oh, good. I can't believe he said that. That's awesome.
Rabbi,
Yeah, go ahead.
would any of these definitions cover the people from these 7 nations that were
Yeah, so that's
away?
exactly what we're going to talk about. Who's a foreigner, migrant? It's the assumption in some Chumash when we come to the land of Israel, we kick out the 7 nations. But what happened? How about people who decided to stay and made peace with us, like what the Gibeonim wanted to do? If they did make peace and didn't go to war with us and accepted the 7 Nochite laws, are they considered? What would they be considered? Okay, but we'll get to that soon. Okay, but that's a good taste of different opinions. Now, I'm going to go back a step and share my screen now and show you how many times we have the word ger in Chumash, and I'll go back to the Ezrach, and then we'll go back to the first one in Vayikra. I'm going to skip on my source sheet. I'm going to, actually, it's not on my source sheet. I'm sorry. I have it on it's too long for the source sheet. I want to do it on Ala Torah. Okay. Ala Torah I did. No, that's not there. I thought I had it. I guess I lost it. Okay. Let me go back to. Okay, here we go. That's Ezrach and Ger. That's what Ezrach. I have to go back. I'm sorry. I thought I had it on my list here. I have to open up another Ala Torah. Sorry about that. Ala Torah is the best resource you could have here. Maybe it is on my source sheet. Maybe by mistake. I'll go back to my source sheet. I'm sorry.
So Rav Soloveitchik uses stranger both places, but Rabbi Kaplan uses stranger first and then proselyte second.
Oh, really? I mean, the Vafta Lager Kamocha is the proselyte.
Yeah, the second one.
It's interesting. But notice chiastically, it's the opening and closing of the section of the unit of chapter 19. Okay, now I guess I did it farther down. That's the Ezrach and the Ger. We'll get to that. We don't have time for. Oh, here we go. Here's the Ger and Chumash. Okay. So the Ger and Chumash. Here we go. I thought it's on my source sheet. Okay. So it's 2 times in Bereshit, 12 times in Shmot, 21 times in Vayikra. Got that? 11 in Bamidbar, 22 in Devarim. It's almost 70 times in Chumash. But that's that now the question every time is going to be when Chumash says ger, is he what we call, again, Chumash doesn't use these terms, but the rabbis do in their commentary. A ger tzedek is what we call a convert, and a ger toshav is what we call a resident alien. He's living in your country, but he's not converted. And the question is how we treat him and who's Chumash talking about. Now, before we continue, I want to explain something in general. In our jargon, as a people, as a migrant people living in other people's countries, as we've been for the last 2,000 years, when you say someone's a ger, obviously he's a convert. Why? Because we're all strangers, because we're gerim in someone else's land. And if you call someone a ger, obviously he's a convert. So when you're not living in your own country, when you're not the sovereign power, unless maybe you're living in Bergen County or I like my teenage jokes, but in most places we're not the main people living there. So a ger is a stranger, but when we call someone a ger, obviously he's a convert. In the land of Israel, when we're all Jewish, the classic ger is someone who's not Jewish, who's come visiting our land. Now, there's a difference between in Chumash for sure. There's a nochri, who's a nochri is someone for sure not Jewish. That's someone visiting our land, like a tourist or someone coming by or a businessman coming in. A ger is someone who's living in your land, but not necessarily Jewish. A nochri is a total outsider. And Chumash sometimes uses the word nochri, we'll see. But we'll have different uses for the word ger. I want to prove to you, sometimes ger has to be Jewish, and sometimes he can't be Jewish. I'll give you an example if you remember. If you have an avela, you know what an avela is? You have a shchita gone bad and you can't eat the meat. Who do you give it to? You can either sell it to a nochri or gift it to a ger. Now he can't be Jewish because if he's Jewish, he can't eat a nevela. But it's beautiful but you can sell it to a nochri, but you need to gift it to a stranger, which means you can prove from there. We'll see that pasuk later in Devarim that sometimes ger cannot be a Jew. That's for sure. On the other hand, I'll show you one example in Vayikra where he has to be Jewish, and so that's what I want to begin with. I want to begin with the first time we have the word ger in Sefer Vayikra, and that has to do with Yom Kippur. It's in chapter 16. And have your English translations open. In chapter 16, verse 29, after we have what's called the Avodah of Yom Kippur and Parshat Acharimot, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll see what Chumash says. We have to go back, and then we'll talk about the Ezrach in a second, because we have Ezrach here as well. Okay, the first mention of Vayikra is as follows. It's a pasuk we all know from Yom Kippur. Vayta lechem l'chukat olam. This would be an everlasting law or statute. In the 7th month, on the 10th of the month, ta'anu nafshotechem, which is really strange. We call that fasting. We don't eat or drink, but it means afflict your soul, whatever that means. Ta'anu nafshotechem. Remember the word inui? So inui nefesh, which Chazal understand is eating and drinking. Maybe they add 3 more. Okay, and no work can be done. Who? The Ezrach and the Ger b'tochechem. Why? Because this is the day which God will atone you or protect you to cleanse you from all your sins. And it's Shabbat Shabbatoni lechem. Again, v'netem nafshotechem chukat olam. Now, who can tell me? Who can tell me? Should this guy be Jewish or not? Just logically.
It's a stranger. Hager hagar b'sochachem.
So is he a convert or not?
No, I don't think so.
It says ger, right?
Because otherwise it would be obvious. If he was,
Oh, perfect. Oh, your question is exactly the key to all the commentaries on all this. Because if he's a convert, then why mention him? Just say one time in Chumash, the same law applies. I'll show the pasuk later on. Torah chat yalachem lager gar b'tochachem. Just say one time in Chumash, once you're a convert, then you have all the laws like any other Jew. Why mention, as we'll see over and over again, a certain laws applies to an Ezrach and a ger gar b'tochachem? Now, let's look at the English translations. Here it says a stranger. Okay. We'll start again. Anyone with English translation for Yom Kippur, 1619?
Okay, so the new Koran, the 2021, the Magraman, they
Yeah.
have, so the Ezrach is native born, and the Ger Yagur is the migrant living among you. Migrant.
Okay. That's a migrant. Okay. It means he's not Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about I want to see art scroll now.
Don't have that.
Who's got the art scroll? Marcy, you had that, right?
I have art scroll 29. The native or the proselyte who dwells among you.
Okay. So he says it's got to be, but you'll see in art scroll almost consistently a ger, only in strange cases, but usually he's always going to be a proselyte, which shouldn't be surprising because in the yeshiva world, a ger is a convert. The question is what's pshat in Chumash. Now, if he's a stranger, why would a stranger be chayiv to keep Yom? If he's not Jewish, why do you have to keep Yom Kippur? Any logic?
Oh.
No.
Why?
When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
So it could be. A lot of Parshim say that. There's like a Shulchan Aruch for people. I'll give you an example in modern day Israel. Can you bring chametz into a Jewish hospital in Israel? Can you bring chametz during Pesach even if you're not Jewish? Well, what a big argument that was. It's called Chok HaChametz. Now, is that fair to people who aren't Jewish?
No.
People aren't really. But that's a good question. But some people, listen, just Jewish country. No, on Pesach, there's no chametz. So respect the fact you're in a Jewish country. It could be.
Yeah,
Now,
but Jews aren't allowed to own chametz, not Jews. Well,
yeah, so halachically it's okay. The question is like a national law.
yeah.
Now, does it say anywhere that a ger can't have chametz?
No.
Or were you in shul last week, a week and a half ago? Okay. To your surprise, right? In Parshat HaChodesh, when we have the laws of chametz, Isur chametz, eating matzah for 7 days. Okay, well, I'm going to show you two very soon. In fact, I'll share my screen right now. It's the first time we have it in Sefer Shmot. Let's open up a Chumash. I think we have a Chumash here. Yeah. We want Shmot. This is it. Here, Shmot. Okay, let's open up Shmot chapter 12. It's actually on my source sheet also, but it's easier to see in a Chumash. Listen what it says. Chapter 12, verse 15, eat matzah for 7 days. Don't have any chametz. And if you eat chametz, you're chayv karet. Keep this in mind. On the first day, matzah, etc. Shmartet matzot. Eat. And then, pasuk yotet, verse 19. And if you have your English Chumashim, open up here and see what they say. It's again, Exodus chapter 12, verse 19. Shivat yamim sor lo matzeh b'betechem. No chametz allowed in your houses. Ki kol ochel machmetzet v'nichreta hanefesh hi mi'adat Yisrael bager u'bezrach haaretz. Okay? No one, you're chayv karet. Remember the word karet. We'll see later on also, the chiyuv karet for Yom Kippur is also on the Ezrach and the ger. If you eat on Yom Kippur, if you don't do inui nefesh. But here, if you eat chametz on Pesach, whether you're an Ezrach or a ger, you're chayv karet. Now, why does this person have to be a proselyte, have to be a convert? What if this included a stranger who's not Jewish? What problem would we have?
because of karet.
But if a
We sell a
stranger
bar
couldn't have
chametz.
chametz, who are we going to sell our chametz to? That would be a disaster. What are you going to do with all the schnapps? So
No, it's
no
not
one
just
could
selling
translate this. This has to be a proselyte. Everyone agree? But then again, why mention this? If he's Jewish, of course. Now, notice the word Ezrach, and that's why altars, I think altars, someone mentioned altars, I'm sure altars will say here, the native and probably the migrant who's...
Koren Koran has also, but Koran calls the ger newcomer.
The newcomer, okay. But notice how every translator is translating based on the context, not on the word. Chumash uses the same word. But pay attention, sometimes it's a ger, and sometimes a ger gar b'tochachem, ger asher b'sharecha. We're going to see different kinds. I'll show you in a minute. It doesn't always just say ger, but every translator has to deal with the context. What it be? Now, if you're chayiv karet, in my opinion, you have to be Jewish. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I find a law that includes karet, being cut off, you're cut off from the covenant. If you're not a member of the covenant, you can't be chayiv karet. Now, we're going to have lots of laws we're going to find, numerous laws. When the punishment is karet, you're cut off. And Chumash goes out of its way always to include the ger when there's a chiyuv karet. Now, someone asked the question, if he's Jewish, say it once. Someone asked that question, which that's the greatest question. If he's Jewish, if he's a convert, why say it? Of course he can't have chametz. Of course he's chayiv karet. Why mention him again? On the other hand, if he's not Jewish, how could he be chayiv karet? No, how could he be cut off from the covenant? So what I want to claim is, I'll take the word ezrach. Whenever we have ezrach and ger together, an ezrach, by definition, is someone who owns land. Because he's a native. He has land. He has land rights. And let's say someone converts. What tribe does he go to? He can't have a tribe because if tribal goes by paternal descent, if you're a ger, you'll never have land rights. And therefore, you're always poor. You don't have the same financial security as an ezrach. And therefore, we have to be extra kind to him because he's in a less,
fragile.
What's a word for in English? Give me a word in English for his
He's vulnerable. Second class.
Okay, there's one word.
He's in limbo.
No, there's a lower level financial status.
Lower class. Vulnerable.
He's vulnerable. There's a word.
Landless.
He's landless, okay, but he's not deprived. He's
Indigent.
No, maybe not.
Okay, I don't feel so bad. I don't remember the word. I know there's a better word in English for it, where your financial situation is you're challenged, you're less off. Okay, but got my point.
In 1789, only landowners could vote.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's called Amma Aretz in later in Chumash. It makes sense, and only men can vote also, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No. And that was not Jewish law. That was ancient law. Now back to our topic. The question comes up. I'll share you 1 second. I'll share something in academia. In academia, the claim is there's no such thing as conversion in the Bible. There's no conversion the rabbis made up in the Second Temple period. I want to prove them wrong today. Because I want to prove that Chumash talks about, and it goes back, I want to go back to the first 2 times we mentioned ger in Chumash. Okay? Anyone knows, take a wild guess, what's going to be the first mention in Sefer Bereshit of a ger?
Bris Bein Absarim with
In Brit Bein
Abraham.
Abtarim. Okay? Where God makes a covenant with the land about becoming to become a nation, you have to go through suffering. Remember? V'abdu v'inu otam 400 shana. I hope you remember the psukim. Remember Yom Kippur Inui Nefesh? I think Yom Kippur, the Inui Nefesh of Yom Kippur goes back to Brit Bein Abtarim. It says Passover. Remember, that was Yom Kippur on the negative side, but on Passover, remember you were a slave. Remember you were avadim. Remember you were a slave in Egypt. And you were strangers in Egypt. That's going to repeat itself or be refrained all through Chumash. Now, the other Brit God made with Avram Avinu was Brit Milah, correct? And in both God makes, there's the 2 Britot, one b'shem Elokim, one b'shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. And don't be surprised that in order to fulfill Pesach, remember, how do we thank God for Brit Bein Abtarim? That's Pesach. Zevach Pesach is thanking God for Brit Bein Abtarim. That should be quite obvious. And therefore, don't be surprised that the prerequisite to bring Pesach is Brit Milah, for males at least, okay? And that's why for conversion, we need Brit Milah. Now, even if one of the most difficult stories in Chumash was back in when Moshe comes back from Midian, remember the hotel scene in the Malon? What's this? Before Moshe can fulfill Brit Bein Abtarim, he has to go through a Brit Milah experience. Without going into the details, and And don't be surprised, there'll be a special section of Chumash that says if you want to remember the Exodus forever, the prerequisite to thank God for the Exodus is Brit Milah. And we're going to see exactly there where Chumash talks about conversion. That's what I want to show it to you. But to appreciate that, I want you to remember those are the two covenants in Bereshit. And the first one, Brit Ben Abtarim, is the first mention that you need to become a ger, so that when you become a nation, you're going to sanctify me by how you treat the ger. And that's why it's so important in Kedoshim to you. Now, anyone know the other time we have the word ger in Bereshit?
Yeah, in Chayei Sarah.
In Chayei Sarah, exactly. When Avram wants to buy a burial plot, remember? He wants something permanent. And he tells the people, ger v'toshav ani amachem. I'm a ger and toshav among you. It means I'm not an Ezrach because I don't own land. He's from Or Kasdim. He's a sojourner. He's a ger. He himself. Now, but he's also a toshav because he's got a business, etc. But does he have rights to a land? He has to buy it. He wants to go. He wants to go out of his way. He doesn't want a freebie. He wants to buy it because he wants to own not just the burial plot, a spot. He doesn't want a spot. He wants a plot. If you remember that share. Now, later on in the end of Sefer Vayikra, remember the laws of Shemitah and Yovel? Who's the land belong to in Sefer Vayikra? Remember, the land belongs to God. Yeah, but listen what God says in Vayikra later on. This is an amazing, and this is almost the conclusion of Vayikra. Let me go back to my Chumash, and Vayikra should be in chapter. I'm sorry. I'll be interested to see how the English translations do this one. Vayikra is going to be chapter 25. Okay, we have the laws of Yovel, etc. I'll find it in a second. Here. A second. I think I skipped it already, probably earlier. Someone will find it before me. It says,
35. Wait,
35 is it?
Or 36.
No, in chapter 35? No, it's in
No,
chapter
no,
35.
chapter
Yeah.
25, verse
25.
Okay.
No.
Or
It's
no,
chapter 25. I'm sorry, you're right.
Chapter 25, verse 35. Gervatoshav. You want that? Gervatoshav?
No. I want Kigirim B'Toshavim V'Temim Badi. Kili Kol Haaretz. It's farther up. I'm sorry, I should have. It's on the main source sheet. Ba'avat Shofar Torah. Mispar Shanim Avam. Someone will find it for me. Give me a second.
23.
23. Maybe that sounds right. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's what I wanted. Thank you. Va'aretz lo timacher letzmitut kili kol haaretz ki gerim v'toshavim etamim adi. The land goes back to God every 50 years, and we receive it back from God every 50 years. Now, keep this in mind, but we in the land of Israel are gerim v'toshavim. That's got to be connected to Avram saying, I'm a ger v'toshav anechi machem hayom. And this goes back to, now, because of this, when were the original Nachalot given out?
Yaakov's blessing.
No, but when did the tribes get their Nachalot?
Yeshua.
Now, in the time of Yeshua, everyone is related to a tribe. I don't think there are too many converts in the time when we conquer the land. They'll come later on. But once we divide up the land to the 12 tribes after conquering the land, there's no way a convert can get land. You understand? Because every 50 years, land ownership goes back to the original owner from the time of Yeshua. Okay, now.
What happened to Amrav that came out?
Erev Rav, they're only mentioned when I think they went away before Kriyat Yamsuf. We blamed them for everything on, but the Erev Rav Alaytam is only mentioned once before Kriyat Yamsuf, and I'm assuming they all ran away before the war. There were no more flights. They got last way back before the war. But what I'm getting at is that there's a lacuna that a ger can never own land because he wasn't there for the original division of the land. He doesn't have a shevet. Now, Yechezkel is going to solve the problem. Why? Because when we go into exile, look at this carefully. When we go into exile many years later, we lost the Yerusha. The Yerusha's gone. Remember, Kibush Rishon is over, but like Dushato. When we come back in Bayit Sheni, we have to fix the lacuna. So if you know Yecheskel's final chapters, in chapter 47 in Yecheskel, there's something amazing. Okay, it's on the source sheet. It should be at the end of the source sheet. I'm sorry I'm jumping over the place, but I just want to share this with you because this is amazing, and then we'll see what phrases he uses. It's the last source on the page. I'm sorry I only have it here in Hebrew. Yecheskel chapter 47, but if you can open up your English, you'll see what they say there. Okay, Yecheskel chapter 47, verse 21. V'chilaktem et haaretz hazot lachem l'shiftei Yisrael. When you come back after we build the temple, etc., and they, when we return from our exile, according to Yecheskel, remember he's talking in the exile, hoping to come back. Okay, so divided to the tribes of Israel. V'yet tapilo ota benachla lechem v'lahagerim agarim b'tochechem asher holidu banim b'tochechem v'ayu lachem ke'ezrach b'pnei Yisrael itchem yitlu benachla b'toch shiftei Yisrael. So what happens? Now we're going to reapportion the land, and that's what Yecheskel is going to do. He divides it into actually 13 sections. There'll be a special nachla for gerim, but look at the word, la gerim hagarim b'tochechem. Pay attention to that phrase. That's going to be key. Okay. That phrase, gerim hagarim b'tochechem, that's going to be the key for understanding who's a convert. In other words, when we come back in the next temple period, Yecheskel says, when you come back from exile, the original kibush is gone. When we come back, anyone who already has children, who's a convert and comes back, he gets now nachalad next time around. Because we solved the lacuna of, for the next Yovel. Everyone understand that? Now remember the phrase, ager agar b'tochechem. Going back to Yom Kippur, here's my suggestion. Whenever it says ager agar b'tochechem, he has to be Jewish. And I'll prove it to you why. And whenever it's Kezrach and Ger, he has to be Jewish. Because we're only differentiating between some with land rights. Now, let me just show you, I don't have time to do this properly. I'm going to show you my bottom line, which is like a chiddush, if you can agree, fine. My claim is as follows. Chumash cannot obligate a non-Jew in mitzvot. In other words, if there's an obligation to do something, it can only be to a convert. Now, and a ger can never become an ezrach, but we have to treat him like an ezrach, even though he's a stranger. But unfortunately, due to the lacuna of nachalot, he'll never own his own land until we go into exile, and Yecheskel fix that. Now, because he's a convert, okay, it's not so easy to accept converts. I don't have to bring proofs from modern day and Jewish history. Accepting converts is not easy. And when you tell someone you're a convert and you're chayiv karet if you eat chametz, you follow? And you're chayiv karet if you don't get Yom Kippur, what's that mean? You're one of us. In other words, I want to be strict with him, and it's important to highlight in Chumash that even though he's a stranger, even though he's a convert, he's still chayiv karet. Because I could say I didn't come out of Egypt, I'm not chayiv in chametz, you follow? I didn't sin with Chet Egel. I don't have Yom Kippur. You follow? I can have a lot of reasons, but the second you give him too many hanachot, what's hanachot? Too many discounts. Oh, you're just a ger. The fact you have the same obligations as an ezrach, that makes you part of the group. And I want to explain why does Chumash go out of its way every time to mention a ger, and what I want to show you, when almost every time there's an obligation in the Torah, whose punishment is karet, we always mention the ger. It's not just when we have mentioned the ger, we mention karet. Every time there's a transgression whose punishment is karet, Chumash goes out of its way to include the ger, starting with chametz on Pesach, which is fundamental. Okay? Now I want to prove it to you inside. Now we'll go back to the source sheet. Hope things will be in order. I want to go back to Gershon's question about Ezrach and ger. Ezrach, I want to claim, and I'm so happy that Alter's English translation points that out. Ezrach is a landowner, and a ger is somebody who doesn't own, a migrant who doesn't own land. But he's part of our community. He's already a convert, though. So let's share our source sheet now, and I'm going to go through it in order. That was the end of it. Usually I save it for the end because we're not going to cover all this. But watch what happens. Okay. So we had Ezrach Mikem, and now we have Ezrach and ger together. Is mostly in Vayikra. Got it? It'll be in Shmot, not in Breshit, but 3 times in Shmot. We'll see when it has B'Korban Pesach. and chametz, and then Vayikra primarily, and in the Bamidbar sections that belong in Vayikra, we'll see. Okay. So we saw the first one about chametz bezrach v'ger. He has to be Jewish. Okay. Now, I'm going to focus now on Pesach, on Chukat Pesach. We'll get to 2 and 3, but these are all. This is the Yom Kippur one we have Ezrach and Ger, which is in Vayikra, and then we'll see these ones in chapter 18 with Arayot. We'll see why Ezrach and Ger there as well. But Ezrach always goes together with Ger. There's only one time. Maybe I'll do it as a guess in case you didn't find it yet. There's only one time. Every time the word Ezrach is in Chumash, it comes with the Ger. It's always a duo. Kezrach v'keger. Now, there's only one time in Chumash we have Ezrach without the Ger. A Chidon Tanakh question.
Sukkot.
Peah?
No, Peah, you give it to the Ger. Okay?
No. He's not. He doesn't have land, so he is not. That's not a mitzvah that he can or cannot do.
So
The one
you give it.
who
No,
leaves,
I didn't say every time. It doesn't say Ezrach every time there's a Ger. The other way around. Every time it says Ezrach, it always mentions a Ger. Every time it says Ger, it doesn't mention Ezrach. Yeah. I'm looking for one time in Chumash where the word Ezrach without the Ger.
Sukkot.
And so very good, Larry. On Sukkot. Okay. Kol Ezrach, remember, B'Sukkot teshvu shivat yamim. Kol Ezrach b'Yisrael yeshuv b'Sukkot. L'mandi yidodorchem ki b'Sukkot hoshavti es Yisrael. Which makes sense. Why? Because you have to leave your home. If you're a ger, you don't have a home. Yeah. It's so nice. Now, it doesn't mean the ger is in Chayv and Sukkot, but emphasizing, of all people, Ezrach has to leave his home. But only by Sukkot at the end. Every other time it says Ezrach and Ger together. Okay. Now we're going to study the first time we have Ezrach and Ger after Chametz, which chronologically this was before the has to do with the chronological order in Parshat Bo, but that would be too confusing. We're going to read the first I call the conversion. Okay. Now, I should also mention we mentioned Brit Ben Abtarim. Now, sometimes Chumash just says Ger. Sometimes it says Ger Shebisharecha. Sometimes it says just plain Ger. Sometimes Ger Shebartzecha. Sometimes a Ger Shebirkebecha. Sometimes a Ger Gar B'tochachem. Now, what I want to show you, the main, and that will always come with the Ezrach. Ezrach a Ger Gar B'tochem. That'll come up a lot. What I want to claim is, almost exclusively, Ger is always, could be a convert or not a convert, anyone who's a stranger. And a ger, a gar b'tochem, is someone who's converted. Now, let me explain why, and then we'll see the source inside. I didn't finish explaining. What I want to say is as follows. When it comes to obligations of a stranger, he has to be Jewish. When Chumash talks about a stranger's obligated Yom Kippur, Chametz, we'll see, he'll need paraduma. We'll see he'll need, there's all these laws that apply to a stranger. If it's a transgression or a prohibition or a commandment, he has to be a convert. When it's our obligation to a stranger, it's not his obligation, but our obligation, he doesn't have to be, he can be anybody. You understand the difference? When Chumash talks about an obligation of the stranger, he has to be a convert. When it talks about our obligation to a stranger, he does have to be Jewish.
But when it says Ger and Ezrach is not Jewish, right?
No, Ezrach is Jewish. Ezrach and Ger, they're both Jewish.
Oh, they're both Jewish.
Yeah, but I meant even though he's not an Ezrach, he's still obligated, and he's chayv karet. We'll see. So I'm going to show you all the Ezrach and Gers are always cases where he's a convert. But I want to show you where Chumash defines it for the first time, and that's right after we leave Egypt. But notice it's a parsha that comes all by itself. If you remember chapter 12 in here, I'm sorry, before I bring the proof sometimes he's not Jewish is lo tuchu, don't eat in the velan dvarim, give it to a ger, gift it to a ger, or sell it to a nochri, because you're an am kadosh, which fits right into Sefer Toshim to you. Okay, but in Vayikra itself, we'll see later on in chapter 17. Okay, that we can't eat blood. No one can eat blood. And a ger go b'tochachem, he's the convert. Can eat dam? That's a prohibition. And if you eat dam, you're chayv karet. Okay, and if you eat nevela Torah, whether you're an Ezrach or a ger, you become tamei. So if you become tamei, you have to be Jewish. But here, this ger is clearly not a convert because he can eat a nevela, But if he's a convert, he becomes tamei if he's in nevela, so he can't eat in nevela. And we had the prohibition of chametz we had. Okay, now where's conversion? We have no kukat pasach. Remember, after we leave Egypt, we're out of Egypt. Maybe we had matzah on the way out, etc. Right at the end of the Exodus story, we go back to laws of Chukat Pesach in the end of chapter 12. Pesach only for the Jewish people because it's our initiation. Remember, we're taking out for Brit Ben Abtarim, we can't get out of Egypt. Now it says as follows. Follow carefully. V'chiya gorit chager, that has to be a non-Jew. Got it? So stranger. V'asa Pesach, and he wants to bring Pesach. In other words, it's not V'asa Pesach, he didn't bring it, he wants to bring Pesach. You have to translate it that way. We see this over and over again when it comes to Passover. V'asa Pesach means he wants to bring a Pesach, and the verb asa, to do, is always associated with Pesach. We'll see it soon in Sefer Bamidbar. Okay? What's required? He molo kol zachar, he has to do circumcision, and then he can make the thing, make the Pesach, and then bayak ezrach aretz, he's like an ezrach. But any Arel can't eat it. Now, is this just a technicality? To eat Pesach, I have to have circumcision? Or is this fundamental, I have to be Jewish? What I want to claim is, this is Chumash's definition of conversion. What do you need to do to become Jewish? The same thing Avram Avinu had to do conversion. Himolo kol zachar. Now, in halacha, you have to do mikveh, and that's why women need mikveh. We learned that from Har Sinai, of V'kidash temo yom machar. That's a different topic. That's a halachic topic. Then we end with what? Torah achat yelachem, v'lager hagar b'tochachem. It was once he's brought Pesach, once he does milah, and then he can eat Pesach. He can never become an Ezrach. He's like an Ezrach, but from now on, the same law applies for the Ezrach and hagar gar b'tochachem. So what I want to claim is every time it says hagar gar b'tochachem, he has to be Jewish, and it's a convert. Hope that's clear now. Now, I'll show you an example in.
So what is the Ezra? He's saying it's a landowner, but
Ezrach is any member of the 12 tribes. By definition, he owns land. Even if he sold it, he gets back in Yovel. He has land rights. So an Ezrach is someone who's a member of the 12 tribes. A ger is someone who converted, but it's not a member of the 12 tribes. So he doesn't have land rights. He can buy land, but at Yovel, it goes back to the original owner.
Menachem, are you saying that an Eved Kanani becomes Jewish? Is now because the man who owns him cannot bring the Korban Pesach unless every male in his household?
That's a machloket rishonim, machloket tanaim on what do you call it? Whether he has to do, whether the ger has to do it or the owner has to convert his. And there's a law. The Rambam brings a law. You can't have an Eved Kanani for more than 12 months without converting him. Yeah. In other words, you can't have a non-Jew in your house to say, if you have 12 months to convert him or send him free. Get him out of there. Or send him to somebody else. You can't. But that's a whole. When it says you want to bring a Pesach, Himolach Zachar, do you have everyone in your household has to have in order for you to eat, or you have to? Does the person eating have to do it? It's a machloket in the Parshanim and the Tanaim even. It's also yeah.
Okay. Rabbi Leibtag.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just so to review though. So if it's talking about a Jew, then why does it specifically say it so many times?
Yeah, so here's the question. I'll repeat the question. If the ger hagar b'tochem, what I want to claim is whenever it says hagar b'tochachem, he has to be Jewish. And whenever there's an obligation, like in Yom Kippur, we'll see in a minute on Parah Adumah and things like that, whenever there's an obligation of the ger, it either say kezrach v'chager or hager gar b'tochachem. Okay? Or maybe we'll see one other option might be hager gar b'Yisrael. Now, what the big question everyone asks is, if he's Jewish and he's a convert, why mention him every single time? Just say one time, Torah chad yadachem. Well, what I claim is, Chumash is going out of its way to make sure we accept the stranger, and therefore it tells us every time there's a law whose punishment is karet, I include the ger to make sure he's included. I'm going to say you're just as responsible for your ger, even though you might think you have less responsibility. So I'm saying in order to include the ger, because naturally we don't accept gerim, What times Chumash goes out of its way to mention this over and over again to make sure we include them.
And it could
That's
be
what I
a
take on
way,
it.
it could be a way to tell the ger maybe you don't want to join us because of all the punishments.
Yeah, also might scare him away. That's what we do. That's what we do in conversion. We scare him.
Right.
It's not an
So
easy job.
Okay, now what is the difference between ger tzedek and ger toshav?
So ger tzedek is a rabbinical term for what we call a convert. And a ger toshav is a ger stranger living among us. So my claim is again that when Chumash talks about obligation to a stranger, right? That's no matter whether he's Jewish or not Jewish, like leket shicha and peah. When we talk about the obligation of a stranger, he has to be Jewish. Now, what would be interesting is whenever there's a set of laws about day-to-day life, it's how we have to treat a stranger. That'll be can be any kind of stranger, as long as he doesn't want to kill us. As long as he's follows the rules of our society, he doesn't have to be Jewish. That's the question. Who do you give your I would say a rough one. V'samachta b'chagecha. Remember that law in Devarim? Atal v'intcha v'itecha. Remember v'ger shebisharecha. V'ger shebikirbecha. So when you have to mesamech on Yom Tov, do you have to include your foreign worker in your Yom Tov meal? That's a great question. So we'll see later in Devarim what comes up. Then let me show you. Let me just prove this to you from Pesach Sheni. I'll show you a bunch of examples. Here, let me open up my Chumash. In Pesach Sheni, we do the same thing again. We want in Bamidbar chapter 9. Chapter 9. Am Yisrael does Pesach Rishon. Okay? And look at the verb asa. Okay? V'yasu b'nei Yisrael et Pesach b'modo. Okay? But on the 14th, tasu oto. Okay? See the word asiyav. Tasu oto v'ken. And by Deborah Moshe ben Israel lasot haPesach v'yasu et haPesach. You can't miss the verb asiyah by Pesach. Why? That's a long story. Okay. Now, there were people who were tamei nefesh adam, and they couldn't do Pesach, and we have laws for Pesach Sheni. Now, this is what happens. Why can't we be part of Korban Pesach? Okay. And God says, Moshe says, I'll hear what God says. It says, Palos, Taber b'nei Yisrael lemor, ish ki yeh tamei lenefesh, o b'derech l'chol lachem, b'dorotechem, v'asa Pesach Hashem. He didn't do it yet. He wants to bring Pesach, but he can't. Therefore, he does it in the second month on the 14th. Ben Arbaim, he has to wait a month. He took Matzah. Now, how does it end? Again, B'chi agoritchem ger, v'asa Pesach Hashem, chukat ha-Pesach mishpato ken yaseh, chukah achat dialachem, leger lezrach ba'aretz. Okay. If there's a ger, okay, he has the same laws like everyone else. It's the same law whether you're a stranger or an Ezrach. It means whether you converted or you born Jewish, even though you didn't leave Egypt, you converted, you still have to bring Pesach. You have the same obligation like everybody else. Let's bring one example for Parah Aduma. That's going to be chapter 19, and they'll see a really interesting one in a minute. Zot Chukat Torah. Okay. V'chibes Yosef, et Ephra Parah, v'ayta livnei Yisrael, v'lager hagar b'tocham, luchat olam. See, hagar b'tochachem, b'tocham is the same idea. So who needs Parah Aduma? Hagar b'tocham. He has to be Jewish. Why else would he need Parah Aduma? He wouldn't have to matmit. Now, chapter 15 in Bamidbar. Let me share you one last question. Who remembers Shul on Yom Kippur and Kol Nidrei night? Remember? On a full stomach, but we do Tfilat Zaka, and then we take out the Sefer Torah, and then we say this pasuk 3 times. V'nislach l'chol adam b'nei Yisrael.
V'ger
hagar b'tocham.
Yikolacham b'shgaga. Now, is he Jewish or not?
Yes.
No one ever thinks about it, right? We're so busy Yom Kippur, but we say it 3 times, don't we?
Right.
Now, is that talking about a convert or any stranger?
It's a convert. I mean, why would other stranger need kapara?
Well, if he's not a convert, why would he need? Well, he doesn't need Yom Kippur, right? Now,
Right.
but no one knows where that pasuk's coming from, do they?
No.
No, it's also I'll show you where it is in Bamidbar. It's in chapter 15 in Bamidbar. It's there's all these sections of Bamidbar that belong in Vayikra that we have to explain later on why. But it's a law if the Supreme Court makes a mistake. Okay. Okay. If we go astray, it said we err, and we do all the mitzvot. It's called Par Halam Davar Shel Tzibor. If the entire nation does something wrong, okay, and if there's a mistake done by the whole congregation, Chazal say when the Supreme Court or the Sanhedrin makes a mistake, they bring a par, okay, and then we do kapara with this thing, okay. Then it says v'nislach l'chol adab b'nei Yisrael v'lagar b'tocham ki l'chol b'shagam. Now, if he's not Jewish, what's the problem? He has to be Jewish. Because the Sanhedrin made a mistake in paskin something. So again, what are we doing? We're talking about the ger is part of us. But whenever it says agar gar b'tocham, it's always an obligation of the stranger. It always has to be a convert. When it's tam ger ki ger mitem beretz Mitzrayim, it can't be only a convert. Because in Egypt we weren't converts, were we? So now I'm going to show you. We'll end with this. I'll show you this. Let me go back to the source sheet, and then there's a lot of more sources on here. But here I'll show you another one about Midbar in a minute. Okay, there's 3 sections of Chumash that talk about day-to-day laws. There's Parsha Mishpatim, Kedoshim Tiyu, and the laws in Devarim, and they all follow the 10 Commandments. Now, if you remember in Devarim, in Mishpatim, the ethical laws begin V'ger lo toneh v'lo techotzena ki ger mitem beretz Mitzrayim. Okay, and same thing, take care of the widow and the orphan. This has to be any stranger, Jewish or not Jewish, okay? Because we are strangers in Egypt. And the grand finale in chapter 23, V'ger lo techatz v'atem yidatem b'nefesh hager ki ger mitem beretz Mitzrayim. Okay? Don't oppress a stranger. That's any stranger in your land. It's a way of life, and we of all people, because we were strangers, we have to redeem our suffering called post-traumatic growth, and when we become a country, we make sure not to do that to others. And the same thing we had in Vayikra, in chapter 19, the ones we saw, and then loving the stranger like yourself, and all through Devarim, remember? God, we describe how great God is, God El Gadol Gibor Vanor, like we say in Shemon Esrei. We describe God is Osem Mishpat Yatom Ba'amana and Oiv Ger Letet Lo Lechem V'Simla. God loves the stranger, and therefore we have to love the stranger, Ki Ger Mitem Beretz Mitzrayim. So every time we have a set of laws that deals with how we behave as a community, as a society, how we treat a stranger, it could be any stranger, Jewish or not Jewish. Whenever it talks about the obligation of a stranger, then we'll say either keger kezrach or ger gar b'tochachem. And then this was the pasuk I said in Devarim chapter 25, keger b'toshavim metemim b'di by Yovel. Now, and it's cool that Moshe Rabbeinu himself calls his first son, after the fact that he sees himself as a stranger. Now, so we had Parsha Mishpatim, we had the valley, we have these laws in Devarim, we see, and we saw the thing in Yecheskel. What I wanted to end with is one more time in Sefer Bamidbar, where we have, this is a great example. In Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 15, there's a law that belongs in Vayikra, which is what? When you come to the land of Israel, and you bring a sacrifice to God, Allah Zabach, Latali Neder, okay? In other words, if you bring an animal to God for a korban, when you bring the korban by kriv amakriv korbanot mincha solet isram below barvit shaman v'yan the nesach. There's a law, real simple. When you come to the land of Israel, what do you need to do? If you bring a sacrifice, you have to bring flour and wine. Now, why doesn't this law apply in the desert?
Where are they going to get the flour and the
wine?
wine?
No flour or wine. Now the animals we have, because we have tzon, bakar. But in land of Israel, you have what's called nesachim. Remember, it's when you bring an animal, you have to have bread and wine or bread and drinks. So you have now who's chayav? Every Ezrach, right? How about a convert who doesn't own land? Maybe he's not chayav. Okay, understand? There's a havamina. Now, if I say you're not obligated, you're not important. I want to make sure to obligate him. There's a havamina. No, that means I might think that if you don't own land, you're not chayv in nesachim. So listen how Chumash words itself here. And listen to the wording. It's awesome how Chumash words itself here. Okay, it talks about how much flour you bring. Okay, then it says as follows: Kol ha'ezrach yaseh kachet ele lakriv ishe. Every Ezrach has to bring nesachim, has to bring flour and wine. V'chi agur itchem ger, okay? O asher b'tochechem, l'dorotechem. And master reich nichoach, kasher tasu ken yaseh, Hakal chuka achat yad lachem v'lager gar chukat olam dortechem kachem kager yad lifnei Hashem. Everyone's equal. Now, is this referring to a ger who's a convert or not? What would you say? But can a non-Jew bring a korban?
Yes.
Yes.
Remember? Can it have a mum? Remember that's caused the korban, remember? If you know the story in Gittin. But that's not our topic today. That's the next time. That's later on in chapter 22 in Vayikra. Now, so this should apply to a ger who's either a regular ger or a convert.
Right.
Now, let's see. Look how Chumash describes this. Now look carefully and look at the wording. It's a really strange line that now makes sense. Remember, a ger gor b'tochechem is a convert, and a stam ger is a non-convert, right? Look at verse 14. V'chiyegu itchem ger, o asher b'tochechem. What's that mean? Either a ger or a ger asher b'tochem. Two types of ger: a plain ger, a plain stranger, or one who converted. Now look how they get around this in English. If there's a stranger sojourn with you, or whoever might be among you, okay. But my claim is ger, whether he's not, even if he's not Jewish, or a ger who is Jewish. It's either a regular ger or a ger shebetochachem, because this O doesn't make sense unless it's two different types of gerim. So either kind. It's basically what Chumash is saying is that when you bring a korban, the nesachim are a din in the korban, not in the person. And therefore, everyone has equal obligation when you bring a korban to God. It's a din in the temple. When you bring a korban, it has to come with flour and wine, and everyone has the same obligation. Jew or non-Jew, convert, anybody. That's a din in the korban.
And that's possible because of Peah and Leket.
Yeah, because that's right. Because we open it up for, we open our fields for the ger thing. And it's basic. It's so. Why do you make such a big deal about it? If I'm going to take the theme of Matan Torah, remember, I took you out of Egypt, mi Beit Avadim. Remember, all through Chumash, I put you there. I put you to Egypt, to know how to act when you come out of Egypt and become your own nation. So, if there's a migrant in our country, we have to treat him nicely. We do the opposite of what Egypt did to us. Now, don't get me wrong. We're talking about migrants who aren't trying to take over our country, not trying to kill us, not terrorists. Saying a regular, normal country where 5-10% of the population, migrants come in, foreign workers, they take care of your grandparents, you take care of your problems, they work in your, whatever. You have migrant workers, foreign workers. Now, they might want to convert, they might not want to convert. As opposed to an achri who's just, a tourist, a visitor, but someone living among you, right? Be nice to them. Bring them, share your holidays with them. The ger shebisharecha, etc. Now, there was only one time in Chumash that didn't. No, I went through every single ger in Chumash. It works like a charm. Whenever he's obligated, either the zechiv karet, it says esrach ger or ger shebetochachem. Plain ger is not an obligation. It's what we have obligation to him. Now, there's one time there's an obligation of a ger that it says ger shebekirbecha. That's with hakel, okay, which I thought it ruined it, and then in the end it proved it. Go to chapter in Devarim, chapter 31, but look carefully at the wording. The famous mitzvah of Hakel et Am. What's it say here? Hakel et Am, Anashim v'Anashim v'Ataf v'Gercha shebisharecha. L'man yishmu, l'man yimudu, v'yiru et Hashem alechem, v'shemu lasot kol divrei Torah azot. Right? We gather the nation, the men, the women, the children, and the ger shebisharecha. Now, ger shar is always even a non-Jew, right? To learn. So, everyone has to be there. That's how we want to relive our Sinai every 7 years. Now, why would we obligate the ger to come to Hakel if he's not Jewish? So my point is, he's not obligated to come. We're obligated to invite him. Because we need to know, Hakel Ta'am, we have to invite the whole nation, the women, the children, and the stranger, because we need to know who the strangers are, and they need to know that we're commanded to help the stranger, that they should come to our fields when it comes when it comes harvest season. So now, Gershar, for example, in Shabbat, it's in the Ten Commandments. We'll end with that one, okay? This might ruin the problem. This brings up the problem of a Shabbos goy, okay? So remember the Ten Commandments? It's in Shmot, I think. We'll look at the ones in Devarim. They're just as good. What's it say there? In fact, the ones in front are better.
Yeah, Shabbat Shabbat.
What's it say in Shabbat? Okay. Yom HaShvi Shabbat L'Hashem Elokecha lo tasecho melacha ata uvincha vitecha v'avdecha b'amatcha v'shorcha v'chamerecha b'bimtecha v'kerecha sheb'shirecha. Now, the man yadoch. No, it's the ger. This ger who can't do work on Shabbat. Okay. Who can't do work? You and your children, ata uvincha vitecha, and your servant and maidservant, and your animals, etc., and all your animals, and the stranger. Now, is he Jewish or not?
No.
So why can't he do work on Shabbos? He can't be Jewish. I said it's obligation to him. He's not obligated.
You can't ask him to do
Amira La'akum, we're not supposed to tell him.
Okay, so the Parshanim have a heyday with this. The question is what is this? The ger can't work, or he can't do our work? That's how we hold. Understand? He can do He can do his own work. He can't do work for us, unless he knows how to do. Unless he knows how to get a hint.
Hello.
It's cold in this room, aren't you cold? So you.
What?
But the way Chazal understand it is that it's talking about a non-Jew. Got it? Who can't do work for us. Or it could be that we have to give him a day of work. The man Yenuach of the Chabach, and then Father, remember you were a slave in Egypt. In there. But it's really nice that in the Ten Commandments, when you say the Ten Commandments, actually this week's Parsha, okay? Look in the Parshanim, who's the ger in Shabbat who can't do work on Shabbat? It's a great machloket Parshanim, but look at the English translations that say convert, okay, because we're out of time already. But look at the English translations that say convert or proselyte or stranger, as who's in your midst. It's called a ger shar. But Chazal, usually a ger shar is someone not Jewish. But we have to be nice to him, but he needs a day of work. He needs a day of rest also.
Never says Ishtecha. Always bothered me. So women can work on Shabbat? What is this?
How can men eat otherwise? Rabbis work also on Shabbat.
Yeah,
No.
well.
Yeah. No, it's included. It's like, you means you and your household. Yeah. Okay. No, you have to your children because you think your children can do work for you also. No, people, of course. Anyway, it's a lot of fun, but look up for fun. Look at the Parshanim on Mitzvot Shabbat. Who's the ger in Shabbat, whether he's Jewish or not, and what his obligation is. Again, three things. Is it he forbidden to work? He can't do work for us, or we have to give him a day off? It's our obligation to him.
But it depends on your definition of work.
Okay, whatever work Chumash is talking about, it's the question is we include the ger in Shabbat, but it says Laman Yenuach of the Chab. We have to rest, so our workers have a day of rest. So basically, it said we're commanded not that he can't work for us, but if he wants to, in fact, Chazal say a goy can't keep Shabbat.
So how about when you go to a Shever Bracha on Shabbat in someone's house, and there's all these waiters and people serving and cleaning up and all that? How does
Ask your local rabbi.
It's like it says that the animal cannot work on Shabbat.
Yeah, he can't do work for you. That's exactly. That's
the waiters.
That's the proof they all bring. It means not he's like an animal, but he can't do work for you.
The waiters aren't doing anything that you can't do yourself.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn, you go to Shever Brachos on Shabbat, and all the waiters are Russian Jews.
Mm-hmm.
They
do work. Yeah. There's
nothing
wrong. Other people
they
do work
can do those tasks. It's not.
Yeah. But you can't tell them to do malacha for you, unless it's a tzarech. Then the rabbis take over. For Sudat Mitzvah, for tzarech gadol, for things like that. But then ask your local rabbi. There's tons of response on that. But the idea is key. The most important thing is the idea that we have to take our suffering in Egypt and apply it to our day-to-day life and make sure not to do to others what they did to us. And Chumash is screaming that message from the first covenant with Abraham Avinu. Okay, I've another class in 5 minutes. So Jay, I'm going to leave. You take over, okay, Rabbi?
No problem. Okay, thank you. We'll see you next week, please God. Okay. All right, as I mentioned, okay, Benny Gesundheit Bod Chatzi Shah, 35 Dakot B'Sefer Tilim, Mizmor Kaf Gimel Hayom, Mizmor LeDavid Hashem Roi Lo Aksar. So those who want to participate, right, if you didn't understand what I said, you don't want to participate. But if you do, then you might want to. Okay, and I mentioned tomorrow 3 classes, we should have 4. Please God, next Monday we'll have 4. But Ari Shvat will be giving part 2 in a series on Rav Kook. Tzvi Garment's class is not taking place. The Bereishit Beit Midrash tomorrow. 2:15, I mentioned the Chama Berish Goldman is starting her series. You're complaining about why women aren't mentioned in the Torah. So come to her class tomorrow. We'll revisiting a woman and halakha. So that'll be tomorrow at 2:15. 2:15. Of course, Mark Shapiro, his Monday class on, which we just restarted, but last Monday night on Shimon Shkop, on our great rabbinic series. And I mentioned, of course, Wednesday, 11 a.m., Dror Frixler, who's a student of Menachem Eliezer Rabinovich and a physicist, will be speaking with Mark Shapiro on Rav Rabinovich's unique views on electricity on Shabbat, talking about what you can ask the Jew to do, what you can do on Shabbos. So that's going to be 11 o'clock on Wednesday. Then all our regular classes, 13 classes this week. Look forward to learning with you. Okay, everybody, be well. Shavua Tov, and let's hear good news. And maybe even the weather will get warmer, but that's of lesser importance than real important good news from Israel, the Middle East. Who knows? The world is who knows where we're standing. But let's pray for good things, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should guide us in good ways. Okay, everybody, be well, and look forward to learning from you. And please invite a friend to join us. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have Jewish waiters on Shabbos, then you can drink mevushal wine. Yes, okay. You mean non-mevushal wine. You have Jewish waiters. I assume that's what you mean there. Okay. Yeah, and then, I mean, that's nothing with Shabbos. Just, yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.